Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Hockey Writers Roundtable. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by my co-host, Jacob Billington. I also got Raz Devraj here. Raz, how's it going?
Yeah, not bad. Excited to come on here and talk some hockey.
All right. Yeah, you cover the LA Kings. We'll talk about
Right.
them later in the show.
Right.
But we're going to start with our NHL news and rumors roundup, as we always do on episodes here. And
Mhm.
we're going to start with the Vancouver Canucks because it has been a topic around here in Vancouver, all around the NHL, actually. Elliot Friedman has been on multiple shows throughout the week talking about this. And that's Elias Pettersson.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, controversial, maybe not. I don't know. That's why we're talking about it. But that they're trying to toughen up Elias Pettersson, and not really the GM and the coaches going about it, but putting on on his teammates to kind of toughen him
Right.
up in practice, going at him. There was a clip that JT Miller kind of went at him in practice, kind of drills. I mean, I don't know how big of a deal it is, but I'll start with you, Raz, on this. What do you think about teammates being tasked with this, motivating a player in this way, and just how Elias Pettersson's kind of dealt with it throughout the start of the season?
Yeah, I think one thing about Pedersen is if you take a look at his press conferences and stuff like that, it doesn't look like he takes criticism very well. And so he kind of like shrugs off those questions about slow starts and
Mhm.
not producing. And obviously he hasn't been like he had a goal last night, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But other than that, like he hasn't been that player that the Canucks have wanted him to be after signing that lengthy $1 million contract. So, yeah, I think Miller is probably the perfect guy to do something like that. He has a bit of an edge. He always had. And one thing about Miller, I think, is that he has the most heart out of any player on that team. And so, if anyone's going to do it, it's got to be him. And I think it's more. I don't know the way to put it, but I think it's better if teammates are doing that more so than just coaches who aren't really on the ice with him. And
Mhm.
so I honestly I do think that's probably the right way to go about it.
I mean, they talked about it on Hockey Night in Canada too. I know that Bieksa was commenting that it's not his job as a teammate to kind of motivate
Mhm.
players. I mean, he gets being tough in practice and stuff, but to motivate to play hockey and to be tough or is not his job. I kind of agree with that, but it's like it's great to go again in practice and just
Mhm.
kind of getting them into the competitive spirit. But
Right.
I mean, Elias Pettersson, he has had that thing with criticism and also reading stuff on social media about him, which is sometimes tough. I mean, as a player, I probably wouldn't be on social media
Mhm.
because what the fans will say about him, about players, it can be a bit jarring of what they say when you're struggling. Even when you're successful, there's things to be on him. It's
Yeah.
like so it is interesting.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be on social media for sure.
Yeah.
Jacob, what do you have any thoughts on Elias Pettersson, how they're kind of dealing with kind of get him going?
Yeah, I don't I don't have a firm stance on this, but for the sake of podcast content, I'll give you the devil's advocate side. Um, so Raz, you were talking about how it's a good thing that it's the players doing it and whatnot. This whole situation, depending on how it's been handled from the start, is one conversation away from a bad Mike Babcock experience. Like I assume it all started with Rick Tocchet talking to Quinn Hughes and JT Miller and whatnot, and just saying like, listen, like we got to give him an extra few bumps in practice and whatnot. If he didn't talk to Elias Pettersson beforehand, this could end up looking like a Mike Babcock kind of incident.
Mm,
Like we saw with Mitch Marner and the work ethic
mm,
list that he went through and just stuff like that. Like it's not to that level that we know of.
mm.
It very well could be if this is all coming public and there wasn't a conversation between Tocchet or even Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. And so it's just a really, really tricky line to speculate on.
Agreed. I mean, they're ta even things about the leadership group trying to get him going, and he has an A on his jersey, and he should be he's part of the leadership group too.
Yeah.
So it is tough. I mean, Pedersen scored, like you said, Raz, the last
Mhm.
night, and hopefully that gets him going. This kind of quiets all this, because he is a very talented player, and I have never been of the thought that he has a bad work ethic. Because I thought he's probably one of the more hardworking guys on the ice and
Yeah.
in practice. I mean, we've known throughout his history that he's not a guy that slacks off. I mean, he'll work hard. I mean, toughness, it's always been a thing. With the Sedins too, they weren't labeled as tough. I disagree with that. That's a whole other topic. I think the Sedins were probably two of the most toughest players the Canucks ever had. What they had to deal with in the corners and all that stuff and how they played the game. But I won't go into too much about that. But I mean, Elias Pettersson doesn't play that same way. He's more of a finesse guy. He doesn't go into the corners and fight with the puck as much. But you see him throw those reverse hits, and it's not like he shies away from physical contact. So I mean, I think being on the line with Garland and Höglander right now has really got him going. And they do that work on the corners. He just has to get into those soft areas, like how he scored the goal. Just got into that area where they could find him, and he just uses his elite shot to score. So I think he'll get going. I don't know if I agree with how it's all gone on. Again, we're not in the dressing room. We don't all this. It's just what's been coming out in the media, and I think it's a bit overblown. And hopefully this kind of quiets it now that he's scored, and hopefully he'll score a few more that'll just kind of just quiet it completely.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to another Canadian team. And I mean, there's been talk about Arber Xhekaj potentially being on the trade block. Because I mean, the Canadians have they had a good start. They've kind of gotten into a bit of a slump lately. And they do have a pretty deep defense core. I mean, a lot of young guys, some veterans in there too. Jacob, what do you think about Xhekaj potentially being moved? Any teams off the top of your head that could be interested in grabbing this guy?
I don't think so. I don't think he's an NHL defenseman. I think if you're not making the Montreal Canadiens defense group, you're not that good. And I'm sure that Arber Xhekaj is probably going to punch me for saying that. Um, and I would be one to turtle. But no, he brings a lot of toughness, which is really good. But he's not making the Canadiens roster, and the Canadiens have a very subpar roster. They're not going to be competitive for a playoff spot, and that's no offense to them. Like that's just they're not in a position to be doing that, especially with some of the injuries they're going through. I, I don't see there being a big market for a guy like Xhekaj. I mean, even towards the end of last year and over the offseason, we've heard these conversations that maybe he's going to be shopped. There hasn't been much talk about any teams being interested. So I don't know. He's a good guy to throw in the lineup when like if the Rangers are sending out Matt Rempe or with Ottawa with Zach McEwen, like or Leafs with Ryan Reeves, he's one of those guys that you can throw into the lineup for some toughness, but he doesn't bring a whole lot more than that. And I root for the guy. I love the story, the whole Costco stuff, and then making it here to the NHL. But I don't think he's an NHL defenseman because, like I said, you can't crack the Canadians roster.
Hmm.
There's not very many rosters that have more of an opportunity than the Canadians did at the start of this season.
Yeah, I mean, he is a younger defenseman. I mean, he's not a top four guy. He's more that depth. I think he'd probably fit on another team. But I think I do agree. I don't think they'd get a lot for him if they do trade him. It's going to be tough, I think. Raz, do you have any thoughts on Xhekaj?
I think, yeah, with Xhekaj, the first thing that comes to mind is just toughness. He brings in that physicality. And so, like Jacob said, if you're not making the Canadiens roster, there aren't many other teams. Maybe Columbus, maybe San Jose, but other than that, there's just not much room for someone like that if he's not cracking the Canadiens roster. But I think if you want a guy that can bring in toughness and go and fight those guys like Rempe or Ryan Reeves or Trouba, then yeah, he's someone you might want to have in the depth chart.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably get a draft pick for him if they do move him. They just got they got a lot of guys that are better than him and have a lot more potential too. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. I'll stay with you, Raz. We'll go to Tristan Jarry, who was sent down to the AHL on a conditioning stint. He hasn't been very good at all for the Penguins. He's started out the year really bad. I mean, you look at his stats; they're not they don't look good. do you think this is a precursor for him being moved from Pittsburgh? I mean, his contract is not the best either to move to a team, especially when he's not playing well. Could his time in Pittsburgh be coming to an end?
Yeah, I feel like this is something we've heard before with, there being talks of Jari on the move, but I think with this, they have Joel Bloomquist in the pipeline, and he's now, I don't know if you'll say starter, but probably 1A, 1B with Nedeljkovic right now with the Penguins. I mean, he's a second round pick. He's been above a .900 save percentage all of last year in the AHL. And so and I think the other thing to mention is the Penguins are old and they are on that decline. Their big three are in their later stages of their career. And so if this might be the perfect time to move on from someone like Jari while you have a goalie like Bloomquist ready to kind of take that starting role. And then you also have Nedeljkovic there as well. So I don't think if they move on from Jari, it's hurting them too much, especially with the way he's performed.
Yeah, that contract. I mean, I was actually surprised they signed him to that contract because he wasn't really playing well
Yeah.
before that either. I thought he would go to he wouldn't be re-signed. There's rumors that the Canucks were interested in him. I'm like, no, please. I mean, I know there's a connection to Pittsburgh, but no, I don't want Jari. He's especially with that contract. Jacob, what do you think about Jari? Is there a potential that he could be moved? I mean, it would be really tough, I think, at this point to trade him.
I think worst case scenario, it's going to end up as like a Cal Peterson option, like with Philadelphia, how they just kind of have to have a $5 million goalie in the AHL. Because right now he's unserviceable. I don't know if either of you watch the Marvel series and the movies and stuff, but they have a show called What If, and I would love to see an NHL version of that with going back to the 2017 expansion draft if Pittsburgh didn't get rid of Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah.
Because then since then they have Matt Murray who looked great and then struggled, and then Tristan Jarry who looked great and then struggled. Where would they be at right now if they had Marc-Andre Fleury? What if? What if they
Yeah.
protected him?
It's true. I mean, I think Fleury would still be. I mean, well, obviously he's still in the NHL, and he's still playing pretty well at his age. So I think, yeah, that'd be an interesting scenario for sure. All right, quickly. I mean, Brad Marchand's been in the news for multiple things, not just this, but
Shocker.
shocker. Yeah, I Jacob he denied a report of an extension that Elliot Freeman actually named it. He said Freeman's report's false. I don't know if that's true. What do you think about Marchand? Is on track of re-signing and getting an extension here, or could it kind of drag on?
I think it makes sense. Brad Marchand is the definition of a Boston Bruin, and that kind of it just carries over and over again through generations at this point. Um, I mean, and he's your captain, and he's one of your best players, and he brings so much to the team, and he's getting up there in age, so a shorter term deal with a lower AAV makes sense. I don't see a world where Brad Marchand suits up on it for another team. So maybe there's no extension in the works right now, like he mentioned. Maybe he's just trying to shut out the noise.
Yeah.
I think he's sticking around in Boston. I don't think there's any chance that he goes anywhere else.
Yeah, I agree. I think Marchand's, but I mean, he's gonna be a Bruin. I think he'll retire as a Bruin. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And he is, and especially they just named him captain too. I don't think he's gonna be a guy that's gonna be gone anytime soon.
And last season we would have said that about Steven Stamkos. The difference is Brad Marchand is the definition of the identity of the Boston
Yes.
Bruins.
Yeah.
Stamkos was a superstar caliber player and the captain of the team, but like he didn't carry that true identity. Like I wouldn't say that Tampa Bay really had an identity. They, of course, they did identity of winners, but they didn't have that true like physical, gritty identity like the Bruins do. I don't think any team does outside of Vegas being the band of misfits. But yeah, I just think that nobody carries their hearts on their sleeves like Brad Marchand does with the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think no one, I mean, I didn't think Stampa was going to move on from Tampa, but yeah, Marchand really fits that identity of that team, and I don't think he'd go anywhere else. All right, Raz, I'll start with you with the takeaways from the games in the last few days. I mean, you can speak on any of these. I mean, first NHL goals, Archie Bains, Maki Samoskevich, and Connor Geekie all scored their first NHL goals in the last few days. Also, Penguins, of course, lost again after, had 2-0 lead. Plenty of high danger chances against again. And then the Jets, 8-0 now. And it's looking like they're going to continue rolling. We'll see how far that goes. Anything else you want to kind of talk about, touching on any of that over the last few days here?
I did see the RSD Baines goal. I thought that was a cool story. Obviously he's playing for his hometown team, and so he's had a few games. Even last year he was called up a few times, and so it's good to see him get that first one. It was a good goal, crashed the net, got
Yeah.
the rebound. So yeah, good hockey play there, and I think with the Geeky goal, it's good to see him get that as well. I've watched him a decent amount with the World Junior team, and he brings in a little bit of everything. He has that bit of a, I don't know if temper is the right word, but he has a bit of grit in the way he plays, and so I think he's a valuable piece for the Lightning moving forward.
Yeah, Geeky's actually had a really good start to the season too. I think, and one thing, I mean, obviously coming over from the Arizona Coyotes, Utah Hockey Club, there. I mean, he was one of their top prospects, and of course was involved in that Sergachev deal. It is he. I love NHL first NHL goals. So I mean, it was great seeing our Steve Baines score his first two, and how big it was a game winner. It turned out to be as well. So I'm really happy for him. I was pushing for them to sign him out of the WHL, so I was happy they actually did, and I'm really excited that he actually became an NHL player, and I think he has a long-term future in
Mhm.
Vancouver too as
Yeah.
a third, fourth line guy. Potentially more, and you don't know. I think he could maybe be an Alex Burrows type guy. Has a few seasons of 20 goals
Mhm.
and be just really good all around guy that can just go up and down the lineup. So I really like that for sure. Jacob, you have anything you want to add for takeaways from the last few games here?
Yeah, I got a question for both of you. Who's the best player out of the 2023 draft?
Oh, 2023. I think
Probably
Let me get a
Connor Bedard.
refresh.
probably Connor Bedard. Yeah.
Probably Connor. It's Matvei Michkov. The Philadelphia Flyers have sucked this year. They won their first game and then they won their just most recent game. So they're now two wins in I don't know how many games, 9 games, 8 games. Not good.
No.
Uh, but Matvei Michkov has 9 points in 8 games. He's leading the team in scoring. He's only had 2 games that he hasn't had a point. He has more multi-point games than he does 0 point games. And he's just been such a fantastic asset for that team. And we talked about Sean Couturier. Actually, we didn't. That didn't make the final cut, but we did talk about Sean Couturier last time, and he took a big step up as well. And the Flyers kind of stomped on the Minnesota Wild 7-5. I think Matvei Michkov is going to be very, very close to Connor Bedard's level.
Mm.
Like we just watched another Crosby Ovechkin get drafted.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, Michkov's probably obviously their best player so far. I mean, Couturier had that 5 point game there.
Yeah,
So that's pretty great for him. And
and Konechny as well. He had a 5 point game too.
Hackney too. Yeah. 5 point games there. And I mean, obviously there's gonna be some guys with big point totals in a game that's 7-5. But yeah, I think Michkov has I mean, a very bright future in the NHL. And he is, I do agree. I think he is probably going to be maybe, obviously, it's really hard to compare Ovechkin. I know Ovechkin's one of the top goal scorers in the world. And he will be for a long time once he beats Gretzky's record eventually. I, I think Michkov could end up being one of the best Russians a few years down the road here again, too. So, yeah, I agree with that. It's two great players that drafted, and Michkov probably should have been second overall when you're looking at it now. Should have maybe even fought for first overall. All right, let's go to you, Raz, and talk about the Kings for a bit. What do you see with their season so far? I mean, obviously they tried to change. They're changing their system. from that 1-3-1 that they've employed for the last few seasons. How have you seen their season so far?
Yeah, the Kings, they started off with a 7-game road trip to open the season, and so that's kind of a tough way to obviously start the season. There's not much time to reset, and you're kind of always going. And I think the one key thing with the Kings right now is they're taking way too many penalties. They're the third most penalized team in the NHL. They've got 44 penalties, and their penalty kill is ranked 20th in the league, operating at 74.4%. So taking too many penalties and not killing enough, and it's costing them. Another thing to mention with the penalties here is Kevin Fiala. He's taken a few offensive zone penalties, kind of undisciplined ones, and it's he's been benched because of it. Yesterday, during the game against Utah, Kevin Fiala was benched for the entire third period. He took 2 offensive zone penalties, and so Jim Hiller's kind of keeping stuff like that on a tight leash, and he's not he's holding players accountable. Power play isn't much better, only operating at 15%, and so special teams is definitely one of the biggest concerns for the Kings. Byfield, Moore, and Deneau have one combined goal between them, and so those are kind of the players that need to carry this team's offense, and they haven't so far. Most of their offense has come from the blue line, and no other defensive group in the NHL actually has more goals than the Kings' decor. They have 7 goals between them. And so, yeah, it's clear that this group is just trying to activate their D-men as much as possible, allow them to find those shooting lanes, and then have the forwards crash in there, and it's working for them. They've scored a lot of goals because of that. I think for bright spots here with the Kings early in the season, the 2 players that have stood out to me the most have been Alex Turcotte and Alex Laferriere. Yeah, they've Turcotte has actually played himself in the top 9, and he's kind of been the reason that the Kings lines have juggled up in the beginning. He's now centering a line with Warren Foegele and Laferriere, and it's been by far the Kings' best line, most consistent. I don't think when they're on the ice, they're spending barely any time in the defensive zone. They're always creating, and so Laferriere is actually tied with Fiala for the most goals on the team, and then the combined points between Turcotte, Laferriere, and Foegele are 14. So they're definitely outside of the defensive group carrying the offense for the Kings right now, which is it's good to see, but it's also kind of concerning because Byfield and them and Moore and Deneau need to kind of step up if this Kings team wants to compete for a playoff spot. I think the last thing I'll mention about the Kings is obviously I said they opened up their season with a 7-game road trip, and now through 9 games they're 5-2-2. So pretty good record for a team that had to start off the season like that. But if you kind of take a deeper look into who they played, it seems like they like to dominate bad teams, which they should be doing, but they get dominated by the good teams. They beat Buffalo, which was kind of a fluke to open the season. They didn't really deserve that win, and then they went on to beat Montreal, Anaheim, San Jose, and Utah. But then they also played Toronto and Vegas, and they were blown out in both of those games. So I think right now it's kind of hard to judge where exactly this team is based off who they've played and who they've lost to, but the expectation, I think, is this team makes the playoffs. I think realistically that's a wild card spot, but coming up here, they have Vegas, Minnesota, and Vancouver. So I think it's going to be a good test for them to see if they can actually compete with teams that are going to make the playoffs.
It's been something around the whole league this year, but they need better goaltending too.
Yeah.
Kemper's been out, but Dave Riddick not playing very good. Phoenix Copley, he's only been in 1 game, I believe.
He
wasn't very good.
He played half of it, so
yeah.
Yeah, it's great hearing the Turcotte's doing better. I mean, he's had to deal with injuries, and it's tough. It's been tough development for him. So I'm glad that he's kind of looks like he's starting to put it together. Staying healthy helps.
Clearly the best player on the ice in all scenarios. So yeah, it's been good to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since he was drafted in the first round there, and one of the top prospects for a long time, and just kind of hit that roadblock for injuries, and hopefully can stay healthy and just keeps going here. So All right, let's move to our quick fire round, and we'll start with the Jets. This is a quick one because I mean they're on. I mean not on the verge yet. I mean it's a few games away here, but 8-0 to start the season, as I mentioned. The record is 10, tied, 10 game winning streaks, and that Toronto Maple Leafs in 93-94 and the Buffalo Sabres in 06-07 both started the year 10-0. I So the games they have coming up, Toronto Maple Leafs, Detroit Red Wings, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets would be the one that they would beat the record. Jacob, do you see them doing it?
So we made our predictions on our last episode. You and Zach both said against the Kraken, I believe.
The
Uh,
Flames. We said the
oh,
Flames.
you said the Flames. He said
Yeah.
the Kraken.
Yeah.
And I said the Maple Leafs, which is going to happen tomorrow night. So, or tonight when you're hearing this. I'm going to change that. I think they keep going. I think they beat the record.
All right. So that means
They've just
they'll beat the Blue Jackets then.
I think they'll beat the They just got so much swagger right now. And I've mentioned it a couple times now, but Neil Pionk going for the Norris Trophy, like I don't know where that came from. Um, but yeah, it's been very surprising. Um, yeah, I mean, we've talked about them, I think, every episode so far, just
Yeah.
more and more surprised each time. But Connor Hellebuck, just his insane stats that were like, oh yeah, it's inflated because it's the first 3 games of the season. Well, now he's 6 games in, and they're looking even better than they did at that point. So,
Yeah.
I don't know how long he's going to be able to keep this up, but I think like it'll be next preseason by the time we see the Jets lose their next game.
Eric Comrie's been good again. I mean, he won the
Yes.
eighth one there. And I mean, the Jets are just finding just different ways to win, too. I mean, they've gotten down in games. It's not like they've led in every game. They've had to come back from 1-0. They haven't scored first in every game. So they've had to battle. It hasn't been easy for them. So I'm gonna say they beat the record too. I love seeing these things. So I mean, I'm gonna say that they'll beat it and go one better and go to. I'm gonna say 12 is when it's gonna end for them. Raz,
Yeah.
what about you? Do you see them beating the record? How long will it
Um,
go?
yeah, I like I like the Jets what they've done so far this season. I think if they don't beat the record, it's going to be Columbus that they lose to, just because that's what's going to happen. But I think they'll beat the Leafs, and you said the Red Wings. They have the Red Wings as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, they're in a good position with these next 3 teams to kind of to win all 3 and take that record. But I'm going to say they lose to the Blue Jackets.
All right. So that they would tie the record and
Yep.
not beat it. All right.
Are we going to talk about the other season opening record that was broken? The
For
San
sure.
Jose Sharks are the first
Is
teams in
that
NHL history to go 9 straight losses in back-to-back seasons.
Oh, yeah, I did not see that one.
Yeah, that's bad.
They have not won a game yet either. That last season they took what? Is it double digits when
I think it
they?
was 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So it was
number's
like,
in my head for some reason. Yeah.
and part of that were like a couple blowouts of 10 goals
Yeah,
against.
they allowed 10 goals in back-to-back games.
Yeah. Yeah, that hasn't happened this season
Not yet. Not
yet.
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 Almost gave the Kings a scare the other day. 3-2 only came out
Yeah.
of that. So that was a close one.
Yeah. I mean, Celebrini hasn't. He's been out, so I mean, he hasn't been able to help them. It's been tough for the Sharks again to start the season. Will Smith hasn't looked very good in his bit to start. Yeah, it's tough. Eventually, they'll still be a good team. I mean, they've got so many good prospects. Eventually, it'll turn around for them.
Yep.
Macklin Celebrini has played in 1 game and he is tied for 5th on the team in scoring.
Oh gosh, that's not good. That is not good.
But Mikael Granlund, I mean, he's over a point a game. Somebody's got to score the points there.
Yep.
All right, quickly, when are the Sharks gonna win their first game? Well, as we're going on streaks here.
Got to get their schedule here.
Yeah, I gotta check.
I did not add that to the so it's kind of on the fly here.
So they got Utah, LA, Chicago, Vancouver. Am I gonna pick LA or Vancouver? You got the LA guy
Oh,
and the
this
Vancouver
sounded
guy
like
here.
the same. This sounded like the same thing that happened last season. Like Canucks cannot give them their first win.
I think it'll be the Canucks. I'll go. What'll that be? 10,
Last season
11,
they
12.
blew them out 10
Yeah, that was,
something.
yeah, I remember
That
that.
was the
It'll
first.
be their 13th game. 9, 10, 11, 12. No, their 14th game. So I think that they beat Vancouver. It's just to go 13-0, 2 seasons in a row.
I think they beat Utah, honestly. Utah's struggled over
Yeah.
their last few games. I think they've lost 3 or 4 in a row. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with yeah, they beat Utah.
All right. All right, let's go back to the Penguins now. Raz, is Mike Sullivan on the hot seat at this point? I mean, we talked about the 2 games. They've given up tons of high danger chances. They had the 2-0 lead against the Canucks, blew that. I mean, played pretty well after I mean, they did fight back, made it
Mhm.
a close game in the third, and pretty much was the best team in the third period. But that stretch of 10 minutes where they were just the Canucks came back and basically won the game. And that was in like 3 minutes, or less than that, like 2 minutes. Is he on the hot seat right now?
Yeah, I just don't know if this is like a coaching problem. I mean, Sullivan's been there since 2015, I'm pretty sure, and he's had lots of success with the Penguins. He's won 2 cups, and
Mm,
the team I just feel like isn't that strong on paper. I don't think that this is a coaching problem, if I'm being completely honest. Obviously, we talked about the bad goaltending.
mm,
That's a lot to do with it. And then yeah, I mean, like yeah, they have Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Carlson, but they're all old now, and
mm.
so it's kind of hard for them. I mean, props to Crosby always. He's gonna
Yeah,
always be able to drive a team, but he's kind of the only guy. I mean, they lost Gensel. Brian Russ actually just got injured, I think
yeah.
last night, and so going forward, I don't think it's going to be much better. I don't know if you can put the blame on Sullivan, especially since he's been there for so long and he's done just fine, winning 2 cups. So yeah.
Mm. Jacob, you see Sullivan being the first guy fired this season?
I, I, I feel like I have to say yes, just
Mhm.
because somebody's got to be held accountable, and it's not
Yeah,
going to be any of those veteran players that we talk about, and it's not going to be Kyle Dubas. They're going to make a change just for the sake of making a change, and the only real option is going to be Mike Sullivan. Like, I don't think it's his fault.
yeah.
It's just the aging roster and all the stuff that's been done
Mm.
before Kyle Dubas got there. Acquiring Carlson was a mistake from the get-go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just not a very good roster.
Yeah.
Is very old. I mean, there's not, and now Rutger McGroarty's in the AHL now, so they just made their roster even older, taking him off of it. So I mean, it is a team that's. I mean, I think they wanted like to re-sign Crosby, obviously, they re-signed Malkin, and Letang. I maybe trying to push for one more cup. I don't know if it's coming. I mean, it's just they're just going to keep aging. That's the
Yeah.
problem, right?
Crosby
Unless
will win it
something
in
happens.
Colorado and pull off a Ray Bork.
Yeah.
Him and Mac together.
Yeah, my
We'll
Nova
see.
Scotia boys.
Yeah, all right.
Marchand will
Um,
go there too.
I think it's true. I think Sullivan is the guy that probably will get fired to try to turn things around, because Dubas obviously didn't hire him. Um, and you always GMs always like to get their own coach in there at some point, and I think that's going to happen soon. I don't know how soon, but if this keeps happening, where they just don't look very good defensively, and giving up that many high danger, you shouldn't be in double digits 2 games in a row. I mean, that's just
No,
that's just not a recipe for success. Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. All right, let's move to goalies that have had good performances to start the season. These names aren't big starters or anything like that, but you got Lucas Dostal with a 2.17 goals against average, 936 uh, save percentage. Kevin Lankinen, 1.95, 930, and Casey DeSmith and 1.69 goals against average and 936 save percentage. You can also add another goalie in here if you want. But Jacob, which one of these guys has surprised you the most, or have you been impressed by the most to start the season?
I am going to throw a different name in there. All three of them, of course, having very impressive starts. But for me, it's Joel Hofer in St.
Yeah.
Louis. He's got a 932 in 3 games. He's got a 3-0-0 record. Jordan Bennington has struggled to start the season. And so Hofer has gonna kind of taken over the starting role a little bit. I wonder if he's going to be given a bit more runway. So Yeah, he's had a great start, so he's my pick there. And as the St. Louis Blues try and get out of the murky middle and the just no man's land, I think he's going to be the one to lead them there, and it's not going to be Bennington.
Yeah, I think Bennington's running out of leash, I think, in St. Louis. I think he's coming to an end, his time there too. I mean, he's obviously getting older as
Yeah.
well. So I think Hofer's the next one up. But I said that about Huso way back, and that didn't happen. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. Raz, what about you? As goalies here?
I'll throw in a random one too, and then I'll go on with the ones you mentioned. But I think Dustin Wolf has been
yeah, he's been
amazing.
really good too.
And even
So
Dan Vladar at that
even
Yeah.
point.
Vladar, yeah, the Flames obviously have surprised probably the entire league with their start here, and I think probably a majority of that is thanks to their goaltending. There's lots of times during Flames games where they're hemmed in their zone, and other teams are peppering their goalies, and they've stood strong. And so, yeah, I'm gonna go with. I don't know if it's all that surprising. Dustin Wolf's projected to be their starter for the foreseeable future. You mentioned Dostal. It's also not surprising to me. He split the load, I believe, with
Mm,
Gibson last season, and I've actually really liked Dostal. I think he's been great for a couple years, and so it's good to see that he's kind of staying consistent.
mm.
I think surprising, and the one you mentioned was Lankinen. I didn't think that he would be able to come in and um, honestly, I thought Silovs would be the starter. I didn't think that Lankinen would come in and take that from him. He would just kind of be more of the 1A, 1B, or even a depth piece for the Canucks' goaltending. But yeah, he's definitely surprised me.
I mean, Langton has had history of being a streaky goaltender, so I'm
Yeah.
hoping that it's not just a streak he's on and he'll kind of fall off. But I mean, these numbers aren't obviously sustainable as being this
Yeah.
high, but I mean, he has been very impressive, and I hope that he continues that until Demko gets back and they can be a really good tandem
Yeah,
for the rest of the season. But he's saved the Canucks to start here because
for
I
sure.
I don't know. I mean, she loves. I mean, he's obviously a good goalie, but I think he still needs a lot of development. He hasn't been that good in the two starts he's been. And Lankinen's just been way better. And I don't know where the Canucks would be if Shelovs would have been in for all those games.
Mhm.
Who knows? But we'll
Seemed like
see.
Silovs has lots of difficulty tracking pucks
Yeah,
from the blue line, so might need another season in the A to work on that. But
yeah. I think well, he's obviously going to go back down to the AHL when Demko comes back, and it'll be Lankinen and Demko for a while, I think. All right, quickly, talked about Marchand at the beginning of the show, but I mean, Jacob, you think this whole thing, Marchand, Montgomery, this whole thing with the bench incident, I mean, it was blown out of proportion, in my opinion. Is it a much ado about nothing? Is there really anything there?
No, it's just a coach being hard on his captain because he needs to be. And that kind of stuff happens every single day. It's usually just in the locker room and not on the bench.
Yeah.
And even Brad Marchand said, he said, I'd rather have a coach that would say something like that rather than say nothing.
Mm.
Like tell me that I'm not doing good, tell me that I need to do something better. It's just a big nothing burger.
Yeah, for sure. Razzie, agree with that?
100%, yeah. I just think it was blown out of proportion because yeah, it was on display in the
Mm.
bench, but no, there's no problem there, I don't think.
Yeah. I agree. I think was again just a big story that they needed to obviously talk about, and we will quickly talk about it and move on. All right, finish the show. One up, one down in the last few days. Jacob, what's your one up and one down?
My one up is going to be Alexei Kolosov, making his NHL debut tonight with the Philadelphia Flyers. It kind of like a magic beans at this point, especially just after spending so long in Russia. Or yeah, he's from Belarus but played in
Yeah,
Russia. We're gonna see kind of what he's up against. He's got allowed one goal in the first period, 9 saves. So off to a pretty good start so far. So it'll be interesting to see how well, because I mean the Flyers just need a goaltender.
yeah,
Obviously, since everything went down with the World Junior team and they lost their superstar caliber goaltender, it's just been a big mess there. They have Fedotov, they have Kolosov, they have Urson, and none of them have been able to be the guy. And Philadelphia's really struggling with that. So he's going to be my one up. My one down is going to be the Toronto Maple Leafs. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games, haven't looked fantastic. So I'd be a little bit concerned about that if I was a Maple Leafs fan. Obviously, most Maple Leafs fans are a lot more than a little bit concerned about it because they're Maple Leafs fans and that's what they do. But yeah, it's just probably just a slump. I'm not worried about the Maple Leafs throughout the whole season, but yeah.
I think with the Maple Leafs, they're still adjusting to Berube's system too. I mean, they've
Yeah.
had Sheldon Keefe for so long, especially the main guys. I think, especially Austin Matthews, I think is maybe, and Mitch Marner, maybe adjusting to a more defensive style, maybe. And Matthews of obviously first time being captain too. So I think there's just a little bit of an adjustment period to start the season. Raz, what about you? One up, one down.
Yeah, I think I'll give my one up to the Calgary Flames. Like I said earlier, they're just surprising everyone. I didn't expect them to come out this strong. I think they just have a good group in the locker room that they've also mentioned for the public that they just have a roster that wants to compete. And the thing with the Flames is they just don't give up. They
Yeah.
seems like they're actually enjoying playing hockey and playing together as a group. And so that's all it seems that they need to be successful. And I don't know if it's sustainable just with how their roster is on paper, but right now they're performing well, and yeah, it's good to see. For my one down, I will go Quinton Byfield. He had a great preseason. He looked explosive, was, gaining the zone multiple times with no difficulty, and he looks like he's missing half a step to throughout these 9 games, and he's supposed to be that third line center, giving the Kings that center depth after Dubois was out the door. And as of now, he's moved back to the wing with Kopitar and Kempe on that first line. So I think he needs to kind of get into a rhythm and start producing, maybe get him back in center because that's where his future is on the Kings. And so, yeah, just not seeing a lot from him to start this season. But yeah, that's going to give my one down to.
All right. I'll give one up to the Winnipeg Jets because of how well they've been doing. Obviously talked about them, but they deserve another mention. I think, you're looking at obviously had a new coach to start the season. Scott Arnell, not really. I mean, he's brand new head coach, but again, he changing a system and being the main voice is difficult sometimes to start a season. And it looks like they've had no problems with adjusting to it. If there was any adjustments, I don't know if they really had to. But to start off the season 8-0 is amazing. And like they're mentioning on the show Hockey Night in Canada yesterday too, that they can now afford little slumps throughout the season. While you start bad like the Oilers did last season, you can't have those slumps. You always got to be on. You can't have a bad game, or you're at risk of not making the playoffs. So I mean, they say you can't. They say you can't. Win the Stanley Cup in October. You can definitely miss the playoffs, I think, in October. So I think you having that good of a cushion to start is great. So I giving the Jets that one up. My one down, I'm going to give it to Steven Stamkos in Nashville. I mean, yeah, adjusting to a new team, a new city, and all that, but you're a superstar player. I mean, yeah, you're older, but you should at least be having more than what he's produced so far and playing all the minutes that he gets. He gets a power play unit. You've got, you're one of the best players on the team and you're not contributing. I think he's got to get going for the Predators. And Predators haven't had a great start to the season either. They're down there with the San Jose Sharks with wins. I mean, they obviously have one, but it's something that Stamkos has started to start doing some stuff for him. So I'm going to give Stamkos the one down. All
I'm
right.
surprised your one up wasn't Arshdeep Bains.
Yeah, well, I mean, Archie Baines deserves a one up too, but we talked about a bit of it too.
When does that
There's a
stop
lot.
you
I
from
want
talking
to
about the
go with
Canucks?
the Canucks. I've had Canucks stuff for last few, so I'd give it to other teams. All right. Well, thanks, Jacob, Raz, for coming on the show and talking a whole bunch of stuff as we always do. Make sure to check out everything at thehogwarts.com for his Kings coverage for Raz there, and also for everything else that we've got on the site for the Substack and everything there, and on the YouTube channel. But make sure to checking out everything until our next episode. We will see you next time.